everybody, this is Josh from Music Lesson here again with another video. I should say this is roaming Josh because as you can tell I'm not back in my studio at home. But I just wanted to make a video for you, and this video is going to talk to you about violin bows, okay? And what you want to look for, what the best qualities are in violin bows so that you can make the best decisions when maybe you're out and about and you see a bow at a thrift shop or something like that, or maybe a garage sale and you see a bow and you're like, that looks like an interesting bow, maybe I can pick that up. Maybe some tips to help you decide whether or not it's a good buy, okay? Or even if you're buying a brand new bow, or even if you've got a bow at home and you just want to know, hey, you know what, is this a bow, a quality bow, is it good, what's it going to do for me? I'm going to give you some tips on that, okay? So I'm just going to go right here. I've got our article up on my phone, so I'm going to use it to go through the article and talk to you guys about it, okay? Now, we don't often think of the bow first when we talk about violins. Immediately, obviously, we think about the violin and the body and the violin itself, but the bow is just as important as the violin in making a sound. Now, arguably, yes, the violin is what produces the vibrations, produces the sounds, and I don't want to marginalize that at all because it is the top. It is number one in our consideration when producing a good sound. But a bow can have a very big effect on your playing and the quality of your sound as well. Okay, so let's move on and talk about that. The bow stick. Okay, what your bow stick's made of. So it'd be the composition. That's going to be a very important thing. Different materials are going to kind of give you different resonance, different sounds, but most importantly, different action. A wooden bow is going to probably give you a little bit more organic feeling. Some people, and to a degree myself included, say that a carbon fiber bow can feel kind of stiff. But at the same time, I kind of like it. My touch is relatively soft. So if I get a little bit of a stiff bow, I don't have a problem with it because I can actually use that to my advantage. A lot of people say that if you use a carbon fiber bow, it gives you a very loud, big sound. I'd say that can be possibly true. I have not objectively tested that like in a laboratory. I do know that some of the wood bows versus some of the carbon fiber bows that I've used, I would definitely say that carbon fiber gave me maybe a little bit more broad of a tone out of my violin. But I wouldn't say that it's enough to make me make a hypothesis, like a scientific hypothesis about the amount of sound that can be produced by a carbon fiber bow versus like a Brazilwood bow or a really good Pernambuco bow. So I don't know if I'd go that far, but I really like carbon fiber bows because they have great qualities, and I'll tell you about those qualities right now. One, for the price to quality ratio, it's extremely high, okay? One, they are relatively competitively priced, generally speaking. They give you very good response for the price that you're going to pay for them, and they last a heck of a long time because they're carbon fiber. Honestly, carbon fiber, it could arguably last you years upon years upon years upon years upon years, potentially far outlasting any wood bow because it's a composite material, okay? So that's one of the positive things there. But I really like it because I find that the carbon fiber bow gives me a really good bounce, and at the same time, I could be wrong, I have not noticed any environmental factors that actually affect my bow, the stick of the carbon fiber bow. So it's pretty much the same wherever I go in the country. If I travel anywhere, carbon fiber stays the same because it's not really affected terribly by temperature. It's not really affected by humidity. The only things that change, obviously, is the humidity will affect the bow hair, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. It will affect the rosin and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's the real big thing about carbon fiber bows. Excellent price to quality ratio, very high. I like them better than Brazilwood bows, so I generally recommend them for my beginner students. And you see that in the article. I generally recommend them to my beginner students if they're looking to kind of upgrade the Brazilwood or the fiberglass bow that maybe don't get me started on that, maybe their outfit came with, upgrade to a carbon fiber bow. Or maybe even a carbon graphite bow, and those tend to work a lot better. Brazilwood bows, not terrible, way better than fiberglass, okay? But it's something that I just like carbon fiber bows better. I think they're better quality to price ratio, and I just think they're more reliable and they respond a little bit better. but there are definitely some really well-made Brazilwood bows. And I think to that point, it becomes a little bit more of the maker as opposed to the material. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about what bows are made of. Okay, the other one, the big one is the Pernambuco material, and that's what they make. You'll find high quality, high price violins, and some very reasonably priced. I'm sorry, violin bows made of Pernambuco. It is the wood for quality violin bows. I really like it. You'll see mine right here. This is a chocolate Pernambuco bow. It's a little bit darker. It's very, very nice. It starts out with I think it's an octagonal here at the frog, and then it goes down into a round stick over here. And I really, really like that. It's one of my favorite bows that I have. Pernambuco is fantastic. You'll see that great quality wood bows tend to go up exponentially in price the older they get. You'll find that to be very, very true, especially the older ones from like the 1800s, the early 1900s. They go up really high in price if they're in good shape and they play well. Okay, so that's the bow stick. Okay, talking about materials and what they're made of, that's kind of the most important thing concerning the bow stick. Okay, the bow hair is also very important. You'll find that most high quality bows and bow hairs are genuine Mongolian horsehair. Okay, there's several reasons for this. A lot of people really like the cold, the weather being where the horse lives that they're going to make the horsehair from. They like it to be a very cold climate. People say that it makes a better hair because it provides more friction. Or maybe the hair is more coarse. That's my hypothesis. Because of where they're grown. Another one is Siberian horsehair. I've seen that. There are synthetic horsehairs. Obviously, they're just not going to be as good as a quality, genuine Mongolian horsehair or Siberian or someplace cold horsehair like that. So really pay attention to the horsehair that your bow has on it. Because if you get something that has synthetic, you might want to just rehair the bow. And make sure that you can rehair the bow, because some bows can't be rehaired, as I've seen in the past. So make sure that's the case, okay? So genuine quality Mongolian horsehair is what you want to shoot for. Makes for a very good sound on your violin, okay? So that's one thing. The next thing that we have that we're looking at is the bounce, okay? And specifically, where is your bounce point, okay? So with my bow, and I'm not talking about the weight and the balance, okay? I'm talking about the bounce point of the bow. So with my bow right here, see if we can back up so you can get the whole thing. My bounce point is about right here, okay? And depending, of course, on how fast I'm going and what I'm playing, my bounce point's about here. This is perfect for me. I really like it there. I don't like a bounce point that's too far up. Don't like a bounce point that's too far down. I don't want a bounce point to be very close to the frog. I like it to be a little bit more towards the middle of the bow, okay? So that's what we're looking for. Where's your bounce point? How much does it bounce? How little does it bounce? If it bounces too much, don't care for it. I personally don't care for it because then the bow gets unwieldy. It just bounces really high and I can't control it very well. If it bounces too little, that's going to affect things like spiccato or ricochet or sautille, okay? It's going to make it a little bit harder, especially for ricochet or sautille. It's going to make it a little bit harder for me to do those techniques because it just doesn't hardly bounce. So find out if the bow bounces, how well it bounces, where it bounces, and that's what you're looking for to optimize your ability to play. Now, if you're a beginner, you're not going to use those techniques anyways, so it's not going to be a big deal, okay? So just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, the next is the weight and the balance. Now, I don't like a bow that's really heavy. I just don't. And that's why I like carbon fiber bows a lot, because they're generally pretty light, but a good Pernambuco bow can be very light, sometimes lighter than a carbon fiber bow. Okay, so, and of course, you're going to pay for that. That's going to be a little bit higher in price, so just keep that in mind. Okay, but I really like a good light Pernambuco bow like this. Now, the thing about it also is that I don't like a bow that has a exaggerated balance point. So if my frog is really heavy, I don't care for it. If my tip is really heavy, I don't care for it. Okay, I like there to be a little bit more weight in the frog, but that's just the way that the bow is made, okay? So make sure your bow is not too heavy. Make sure it's not too lopsided, all right? So if I'm going to flip the bow over, and again, every bow is different and every player is different, so keep that in mind when you're doing this. It's just a general guide for you, okay? See if I can even do this again. There we go, right there. So that's about where my balance point is on my bow, the actual weight distribution, okay? Not my bounce point, but the weight distribution. And that's going to be fine because my hand's going to be holding it right here. So most of the, the balance point is going to be right there. That's totally fine. I'll have full control over the bow, okay? All right, so that's weight and balance. The next thing is the physical characteristics of the bow. Okay, so we're talking about the camber here, okay? We're talking about the camber or the curvature of the bow. Right now, my bow is under tension. I've tightened it at the frog. It's under tension, but you can still see that there's a curve there. All right, now I'm going to put it down, put my phone down, and I'm going to go ahead and do this, loosen my bow. Now you can really see the camber. Okay, you can really see how it's curved down. This is good. You want this. One of the reasons that we don't keep our bow tightened all the time, for example, when I put it in the case, I loosen it because I don't want it to be tight all the time. I want to save that camber, and if you tighten it all the time, or even worse, if you keep it bowed up too often, or even straight too often, it's going to affect the camber of your bow, okay? And you don't want that. You want it to be curved downward so that you can have that tension against the string, okay, that you're playing. All right, so that's the camber. The next thing you want to consider is the straightness of the bow, okay? So to do this, you're going to look straight down the bow and make sure the bow is nice and straight. See if I can get an angle on it right here. It's kind of tricky. But you're just going to look straight down the bow and make sure it's straight. You don't want it to be leaning to the left or leaning to the right too much. You want it to be nice and straight, okay? So keep that in mind as you're choosing bows or looking for qualities in bows that you need to make sure that the bow is a good quality bow. All right, so finally we have two considerations. One is the budget, okay, your budget. How much are you going to spend on your bow? Now, first consideration is don't get the price that you spend or the price that you pay for your bow too far out of whack with what you spend on your violin. The violin should be the main event. You definitely want to spend the most money on your violin, okay? But at the same time, don't neglect the bow. Definitely allocate a good amount of funds to getting a quality bow to play with, okay? However, don't break the bank. Now, your best, I believe personally, and this is just Josh talking, that you're going to get the best bang for your buck from a carbon fiber bow as a student, okay? Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, as you get more towards advanced, you're definitely going to want to spend more money on a good Pernambuco bow. But if you're a student, a beginner or intermediate at least, I believe a carbon fiber bow, a good carbon fiber bow, is a very, very good place to spend your money because you're going to get a very high quality to price ratio on generally most carbon fiber bows. Check them all out. Definitely try them out, okay? And we're going to talk about that more in a second. But you're going to get the best bang for your buck with a good carbon fiber bow, I believe. And then, of course, Brazilwood and fiberglass. And a lot of violin packages are shipped with, it's like a fiberglass material. And it's just awful. I'm sorry. I just have to say it. It's awful. If you get one, replace it immediately. They're very heavy. They're not responsive at all. I understand the logic behind it to a degree. For example, new students, they need a little extra weight to keep the bow in place. And I think that's probably the logic, or maybe it's just because it's super cheap. It may be that case. I'm not sure. But if you get the chance, you can get a good carbon fiber bow for like $67, $68. So it's very reasonable now. So high quality to price ratio there. Then, of course, you can step up to the Pernambuco bow, which is also going to be much more expensive. You can find a good Brazilwood bow, but try it out first. It's hit and miss for me, like I've talked about already. It's hit and miss for me for Brazilwood bows. I shy away from them personally, but if you can find one that's really good, make sure you can try it out, and if you don't like it, send it back. We'll talk about that more in a second here. Okay? Okay, the next thing is the violin size. Make sure your bow fits your violin size. I've had students order bows and they get them in and they're playing a half-size bow on a full-size violin, or they're playing a full-size bow on a half-size violin. Make sure your bow is made for your violin size. Quarter size to quarter size, half size to half size, full size to full size for your bow and your violin. Okay, that's the final consideration. Okay, so take all these things into consideration and hopefully you'll find a good quality bow that fits your budget, your skills, and helps you grow as a musician. The one thing that I will say is make sure that wherever you buy your bow, if you buy it locally or you buy it online, especially if you buy it online, make sure you can ship it back if you don't like it. Okay, at least a 7 to 14 day return policy. If I prefer like a 14-day return policy, because 7 days can be a little bit short, especially if they're counting from the day they shipped the package. Okay, and sometimes that happens. I've had that happen to me before. I get the package and I have a day to try it out, and then I got to turn around and ship it if I don't like it. But so try to find like a 14-day return policy. Some places offer 30-day, which is fantastic. Take advantage of that if you can. Try a bunch of bows. Try as many as you possibly can before you make your decision, because not every bow works for every violin, and not every bow works for every player. Okay, so take that into consideration when you're playing. Try to find a great bow that works for you, that fits your needs, that fits your skill level, but it's also going to allow you to grow into more of the bow. Okay, so those are my tips for you on bows and quality and what to look for and things to consider, and I hope this helped you out. Remember, music is magic, and I'll see you in the next video.